The use of body language and intonation is recognised as an important part of teaching. In this programme, we highlight techniques that can be used throughout a lesson, from bringing pupils in to getting them out again, and engaging, motivating and managing them in between. We enlist the help of staff at Myton School in Warwick and Assistant Head Chris Caswell, who's studied and written about the use of body language in the classroom. Chris, who's also a teacher trainer, observes and reviews the actions of 5 teachers at different stages of their lessons.
Good girl, well done.
One of the major features of non-verbal communication, body language, is space. Space, coupled with gaze, are very powerful indicators of one's status. We look at Rachel, teacher of personal and social health education. Look at the way in which she uses that space and closes down the space between her and the pupils as they walk through. They will find that slightly uncomfortable, but it does give Rachel a chance to calm them down and set the scene for her lesson. The pupils unbunch as a result of this. They are forced to go in single file. And if there's been some emotional build-up in the corridor waiting to go into the lesson, this is Rachel's opportunity to calm that down.
Okay, and now quickly settle down, quickly find your seats.
Having completed the register, rather than remain behind the desk as if it were a barrier, Rachel chooses to bring herself into the main body of the classroom.
Now you've done that, what I want you to do is I want you to put the date, which is on the board, the title, and the learning objectives.
She gives her instructions, clearly indicating what they're to do, and she will wait to check that all those pupils have understood those instructions. You notice she's gazing across the classroom at all points to check that people are following the instructions that she's given them. You will see how she paces forward, how she uses the whole of her body to indicate. She's taking their eyes where she wants them to go. And in the same sense, she's taking their mind there as well. When she's looking to empathise with the children, she uses her hands. And those hands, palm up, are an indication of how she wants to make contact with their thoughts in a non-threatening way.
And we're going to evaluate these pros and cons. What does evaluate mean?
But she's also showing through smiles and through facial gesture that she's willing to work with them and she appreciates their response.
Yeah, those are really good answers. Thank you very much.
So we've got our pupils in. And it's important at this stage to engage with them as quickly as possible, get our lesson underway, and non-verbal communication has got a big role in doing this. If we look at Chris, teacher of history with a Year 7 group, he paces up and down the classroom, looking for appropriate answers, looking for contributions. He does this to make sure that at no point is the distance too great for him to make contact with those pupils. He knows they're looking at him, and he wants to reinforce the fact that he has the right to move, and they are there to listen. At one point we can see that Chris moves from the front of the class and mingles in and works himself in around the children. Again, he does this to make it absolutely evident to the children that they are all to be engaged in his teaching. And at the same time, he's willing to gesture to the children to get on board and get involved with that.
Imagination, using our knowledge to work out what life might have been like in Warwick during the medieval period.
His approval is clearly indicated with a head nod and an inclination towards the child that's delivered that answer. He will make it evident by reaching in to that space that he's approving of that response.
Oh, well done. It would be in strips. It would be divided up into strips, wouldn't it?
When an answer isn't absolutely what Chris is listening for, he takes the answer and turns it slightly and offers it back.
Hamlet could be on a straight road, but it doesn't. So could a village, either road or grass. Good guess. What do you think?
He does this as much physically as he does verbally, and that strengthens his position as the leader of this lesson. Generally, research shows that high-status people are relaxed, often put weight on one leg or the other, and quite usually relax their arms, which obviously occasionally means popping their hands in their pockets, as Chris does here. Folding your arms in front of you, standing behind the table, using barriers simply send a signal that You don't want to make contact. By being relaxed in this manner, Chris is showing that he is comfortable both with the children and with his subject. By using multiple signalling in this way, Chris is able to make that initial engagement right at the start of the lesson. By taking dominance of his position within the classroom, by inviting contributions, by reinforcing the value of the contributions that are made in that lesson, he is taking command of that lesson and conducting and directing it and taking it forward. Having got our pupils in, have them in the position where we command authority, how do we actually hold their attention and take their ideas forward? Here we have Alan. Alan's teaching drama to a Year 9 group. And we can see immediately from the way in which he is gesturing to the pupils and he's nodding his head that he's looking to engage. And he's now beginning to invite them into the topic of the day.
The radioactive waste could have got out and it could have destroyed the countryside and everyone becomes radioactive and people start to die, yes?
When he needs children to think about issues, he taps his head. He's really saying, as a mimic would, this is how it works. He's saying to the children, think along with me.
Maybe have somebody giving me a bit of narrative thoughts in their head of what's happening.
You can see his fingers pinch in ideas. He captures their ideas, indicates who it is that he wants to speak, and then holds on to that idea. Although he's standing fairly upright, he leans slightly forward. He moves momentarily into their territory, into their minds. He conducts their learning, emphasizing points with the jab or a baton movement of his hand. He's looking intently. He's looking for the next response that he can latch onto and add emphasis to. When he has the answer he wants, he holds his hand there to reinforce that that is the sort of response that will take that group further in their thinking. He gets them on board. He makes himself part of their learning.
Thank you, guys.
Here we have Jane, modern foreign language teacher, teaching French. And as we can see, the whiteboard in this instance, in this lesson, is a very significant feature. But Jane maintains her presence, even though she's fixed at the front of the class, by continual and effective use of a combination of non-verbal cues. She's animated, she's moving frequently, and in the same way that a child might watch a film with fast-moving images, Jane is replicating that to some extent in the way that she is making contact with them physically and mentally.
Oui, is it ice? Well done, Jocelyn. Dominic. Good, super, très bien.
We can see from the expression on her face that she's inviting the pupils to become involved. She's smiling. She's questioning. She's nodding ferociously when she's getting the examples and the answers that she needs. She's inviting those children to come in to her lesson.
They do, absolutely. These ones absolutely do. Superb, très bien.
She's praising, but with her whole body, not just with verbal recognition. She's using hands, again, to hold attention. Another technique that Jane uses is to indicate to the pupils where and when she wants them to enter a thinking mode. Now, Jane does this by actually touching her chin. She adopts a thinking pose. She looks at the children in the way that she's expecting the children to behave. And more times than not, you'll get that thoughtful response from the children by simply placing your hand against your chin and looking directly at the person you want the answer from. And in Jane's case, she does it well. One particularly powerful aspect of Jane's non-verbal communication is the way in which she uses intonation.
Let's have a look at these ones then.
The intonation really falls into two categories. Proclaiming is really making a statement. Here the tone tends to tail off at the end of a sentence. So effectively Jane would be saying, I need you to open your books now. I need you to move here.
Regardez, s'il vous plaît, la feuille sur la table. Regardez, s'il vous plaît.
But occasionally she uses a referring statement. And this is when she's inviting the pupils to get involved. And if you notice, the pitch of her voice rises very slightly at the end of every sentence.
When we're talking about he or she, what's the ending going to be? Il y a des autres mains? De cette personne? Merci. OK, d'accord.
Here she is really saying, join me in this, referring to the children in terms of participants in that classroom and in that lesson.
Encore? C'est bon? C'est tout. Superbe.
One occasion when non-verbal communication is particularly useful is at the end of a lesson. Here we see Amy, teacher of geography, who's had a very active lesson, and the pupils are getting a little bit agitated and ready to leave.
Someone is going to be in charge of collecting all of the pieces of paper in. Someone else is going to put the maps away. Everybody else...
Firstly, she gives all the pupils a specific job to do. She will carefully monitor that they are doing that job correctly. She will have a high profile, a strong presence in that room.
Fantastic at the back, good girls, well done, take seats.
She will continue to talk them through the process, and they will continue to be aware that she is still in command of that lesson. And you can see how she is using gesture to reinforce the points that she is making to that group. The outstretched hand is an extremely good way of retaining the attention of a pupil without making eye contact and without having to continue to pull them in focus verbally. Quite often in non-verbal communication, we use more than one signal. These will just reinforce our intention. So in the case of Amy, she is holding the attention of most of her pupils by using outward hand gestures. But at the same time, her facial expression and the intonation of her voice is sending a secondary signal.
What we're going to do is we're going to get ourselves ready to go now. Tom, have you got your top button done up? That's still not actually done up though, Tom, is it?
As we can hear, the intonation of Amy's voice remains reasonably flat, even when she is clearly irritated. This actually flattens out the effect. This means that she's not raising the emotional stakes in this lesson, but she is still maintaining control by using all of those signals collectively in that compound way.
You're not listening, however, now. Jake, thank you very much.
One particular technique that Amy uses is to invite class management to be part of her evaluation. Very cleverly, she's asking the pupils questions about what they have learned in this lesson. And she's going to use that as a way of organising the classroom.
Ah, so you could be running at New Bowl Common. I like it. This table, carefully, stand up for me, please.
As she asks them the questions, those pupils that have the right answer will be invited to stand by their tables, ready to be released at the end of the lesson.
These, well done, stand up. Right, this table you may go first. You're all completely ready, well done.
Now you can see, table by table, these pupils are being invited to leave in an orderly and reasonable manner, conducted by Amy to the very last pupil.
And this table, off you go then as well. Thank you very much, well done.
You can find more tips to boost your teaching on the Teacher's TV website.